over drink. Pull up a chair and let's chill. Let's party, let's talk and let's build. Yeah, alright, let's talk over drink.
Welcome to another episode of Talks Over Drinks. My name is Corey Folkenye, my partner in crime, Markel Prines. The guy, Markel. It's good, man. Good to be here. You gonna set it off? Inspirational quote?
Absolutely.
The book of knowledge.
The book of knowledge. This isn't part of the quote, but yeah, everybody should have a book of knowledge, so to speak.
No doubt.
Write down your thoughts and everything just to keep track, to keep yourself in check. Now, this quote right here is short and sweet. It's motivation gets you going. Habit gets you there. So plain and simple.
Motivation gets you going.
Habit.
Habit gets you there.
Because you can't start something and then think that, hey, everything's going to roll off, you're going to be successful just from that one action. You got to create the habit behind it, keep it going, and that's how you become successful.
Okay. Well, we're going to get into the first guest.
Absolutely.
Our first guest this day, or this great day, is my good friend, Brian Cannon, Executive Director of Virginia 2021. Brian, good to see you again.
Good to see you. Miguel, nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, all right.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Brian, thanks for having us. So, Brian and I met at the Richmond Crusade for Voters.
We did, yeah.
So, Richmond Crusade for Voters, the oldest African-American voting rights organization in Virginia. Brian, tell the people a little bit about your organization and what you all hope to do.
Sure. Well, we're a redistricting reform group, which is probably the most boring but most important voting rights issue we face,
Okay.
which is how our communities are divided up to create districts for our congressional representatives, for our state house, and for our state senate.
Okay.
So, you know, three of your biggest representatives are chosen in a district that's just made up of, you know, some parts of Richmond maybe, some parts of Chesterfield, some parts of Powhatan or whatever, and how they put those lines together.
Okay.
Who goes in those lines, who doesn't go in those lines,
Okay.
is a pretty dirty political deed. It happens
Right.
once a decade, and our group wants to make sure that that process, by how they carve our communities up, is done in a non-political way, is done fairly, and is done to keep communities together instead of dividing them up.
Okay. So, what is it that you want people to help you do? If people wanted to get involved with your organization, how could they do so?
Sure. Well, you know, people talking to their elected leaders about this is crucial. And telling other folks about it. If you understand the issue, you can tell other folks, but telling your elected leaders is crucial. And you go onto our website at onevirginia2021.org.
Okay.
And that's ONE Virginia, all spelled out. And then 2021, which is the next time we'll redistrict.
Okay.
There you can sign a petition, and they'll actually email your state delegate and state senator to say, fix this. The idea would be, we got to take it out of the politicians' hands. You got to put it to an independent commission, and then you got to let them not play games with all the data they can use, because you know they have data on us that says who we are, where we vote, what our credit score is, what magazines we subscribe. So they know whether we're, you know, a Democrat or a Republican or independent or green or libertarian or whatever. They know that, and so they use that data to carve up, put us in districts or out of districts, to make sure that whoever the incumbent politician is, the guy currently holding the office, he gets reelected.
Right.
Okay.
I would say, what is your motivation to actually be a part of the organization? What actually got you started and wanting to be a part of this and make sure this is done right?
Sure. When I was in law school, I went to William & Mary, and I graduated in 2011. And that spring, there was a statewide competition for law students and college students to actually redistrict Virginia. It was they gave us the software to do it, the same software as the politicians use to do it, and they let us do it. And they said, "Could y'all do it better?" And we can't do it worse than the way they currently do it. But they let us do it. So I got to see, you can really do this in a fair way that makes communities whole, keeps them together, so that they could have a voice through their representative, rather than having a representative who might care not at all about them because they're really from, you know, across the river or something like that they don't really care about this part of your neighborhood.
How much different did you guys model of it look as compared to what the politicians did?
Well, so there's 100 metrics for it, right? So you just use your eyeballs, just the eyeball test. You look at the districts, like Congressman Scott's district right now, and he's a reform supporter, but his district, and he didn't draw it, it was drawn for him by the General Assembly, goes all the way from most east of Richmond, all the way down the James River, down into Hampton and into Norfolk. And that's a lot to represent. That's a hard area to represent. The districts you see coming from this competition had a district in Richmond and Petersburg, had a district in Hampton and Norfolk and Portsmouth, and kind of keeping those communities together.
Right.
Because asking Congressman Scott to represent my family in the south side of Richmond,
Yeah, and then all the way to Norfolk.
being from all the way in Newport News, like
Yeah.
that's a lot of work, and that's, I mean, how does, they're different issues, so
Right.
trying to keep our communities together.
What, I know you've been kind of making the circuit, doing presentations, and that's how the two of us met.
Yeah.
Besides reaching out to the politicians, is it something that you think that people should do in the community to kind of help perpetuate what you're trying to get across about how to fairly redraw districts and fairly represent all of our people?
Sure. Well, I think the easy thing to do to understand the problem is to go online and try to find out what's the district you live in look like.
Okay.
And if you think it looks weird because it doesn't look like anything you know of,
Okay.
right? If you think it looks weird, then maybe invite us at One Virginia 2021 to come have a talk at your neighborhood, your group, whether it's a crusade for voters. I talk to Rotary clubs, to tea parties around the state, to anywhere that'll listen. We're happy to come and explain what's going on and how people can get involved. But emailing your politician, following us on Facebook or Twitter, all those things work too. It's just a matter of keeping the conversation going, because this is the kind of sleepy, sneaky issue that is corrupting and corroding our political system.
Okay, well, we're going to cut to a commercial break. Would you stay with us? Because we have some other folks that I think you would gel nicely with. I think we can have a really interesting
Absolutely.
conversation. Is that okay?
That's great, man. I'd love
All
to.
right, no problem. Talks
Thanks.
over drinks. We're going to cut to a commercial break. Cheers.
All right, I want to welcome everybody back to our show, Talks Over the Drinks. And my brother Corey will be introducing our next guest.
Next guest to grace the couch is entrepreneur, businessman extraordinaire, who is also running for a congressional seat for the 7th District here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, Mr. Mike Dickinson. Mike, come on out, sir.
Good to see you. Hey, good to
Welcome,
see you.
brother.
Welcome.
All
Thanks.
right.
Good to
Have a
see
seat, have a seat. So as we're having the redistricting conversation, I'm glad that you had a chance to come with us. Tell the people a little bit about your background and a little bit about where you're trying to go politically.
Well, I'm from here in Richmond, Virginia. I grew up in Henrico County. After I went to high school, I went to VCU. I was at VCU for quite some time.
Okay.
And then I got out into the restaurant and bar business.
Okay.
Worked for a guy for about 10 years. Learned a lot from him, and then went out and started doing it on my own.
Okay. So you have businesses currently, and where your business is located?
Yeah, I currently have a bar in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay.
I have a bar in Newport News, Virginia as well. And hopefully expanding again pretty soon.
Okay. Well, we
Yeah.
definitely like to keep tabs on you.
You're going to bring one to Richmond, right?
Eventually, yeah. The laws of Virginia are very terrible with
I've heard.
ABC and with the bars and restaurants. It really puts small business at a huge disadvantage. Considering all the hoops you have to jump through here compared to other states where you can just get an alcohol license and be open the next day, or transfer it the next day and be open. Here in Virginia, it's very, very difficult if you're not a multi-million-dollar operator.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about some of the hoops that you have to jump through in order to stay in line with what the Commonwealth and the ABC board do.
Well, here in Virginia, the laws are terrible when it comes to ABC and small business. Let's say tomorrow you want to buy a building and open up just a regular restaurant or bar.
Right.
You have to go out of pocket and spend all this money for kitchen, hood system, vent system before you even can apply. Before you can even apply to get an ABC license, you have to have a health permit in hand. You have to have a business license in hand. You have to have whatever special requirements the city requires or the county requires in hand
Okay.
before you go and spend the money to apply for an ABC license.
Okay.
So then you jump through that hoop. Let's say then you get the ABC license. Then you have to, half of your sales each month have to be food. That's why you always see these bars and restaurants doing half-price happy hour or half-price late-night happy hour.
Okay.
So basically, you as a bar owner or restaurant owner have to take a loss on the food to be able to satisfy ABC's wacky requirement.
Okay. So what's your take on? I know some of the new brewery that's going to be opening here on the East End soon, and I've heard a lot of bar owners and restaurant owners in city council meetings being upset.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about how your personal perspective is being with regard to those types of businesses coming in.
I support any business that wants to come here to Virginia.
Right.
But my gripe, I guess, against them is I don't think that government should be involved in helping or picking and choosing
Right, the winners.
winners.
Yeah.
Or I mean, these people that the Stonehenge Brewery or Stone Cold or whatever it's called, they're getting good government benefit. They're getting good government assistance and tax breaks, all to come here. And meanwhile, me, I grew up here, and I'm not getting a tax break.
Okay.
Where's my tax break at? Why are they going to spend all this money to bring someone from out of state here and not tax break me when I've been here
Understand.
my whole life?
Right. So is that what's directing you to now want to run for office?
Oh, well, I've been wanting to run for office pretty much my whole life.
Okay.
When I grew up, I knew early on I liked speaking out and having a voice, and I really didn't mind if teachers didn't like me in school or whatever.
Okay.
You know, and then I learned early on that I could write, and I wanted to be a journalist.
Okay.
Then I saw some movies when I was in middle school, was the time that the movies People vs. Larry Flint and
Okay.
Private Parts about Howard Stern and all that came out.
Okay.
And, you know, Larry Flint was pretty much a real inspiration to me because he was somebody who stood up for the rights of everybody. People didn't even like him,
Okay.
and he was standing up for their rights.
Okay.
And then, you know, he got shot and went through all the court battles. But he did that for everybody. People that didn't like him, he went through all of that.
Okay.
And that I really knew then that I wanted to be more than just write about stuff. I wanted to be involved if I
Okay.
could be.
Okay.
Fast forward to when I was at VCU, I was still on the mass comm path and wanted to be a writer and all of this. I was taking Michael Paul Williams, the writer for the Times-Dispatch.
Yes, sir.
He had a news writing class.
Okay.
And we went down to city council because they were discussing the curfew law they were going to put into effect.
Okay.
And we were there we were supposed to take notes and write about it. And then they called for public comment, and I didn't know what I was doing. I got up in line to comment, and then I see him at the corner of my eye, like, sit down, you're the media, you can't be commenting.
Okay.
You know, and I knew then that, you know, my path wasn't going to be one of just media, that I was going to have to be in a position where I'd have a platform and be able to speak out, and hence why I kind of went to work for myself, because I wanted to be in a position where I could say whatever I wanted to and not have my employer or, you know, whoever I worked for be mad at me or be able to
Right.
fire me or whatever.
Right. So what have you run for in the past, and what are you currently running for now?
I'm currently running for Congress in the 7th District here
Okay.
in Richmond and Henrico County.
Okay.
I just got done running for the 68th House of Delegates District.
Okay.
2 years ago, I tried to run for the 7th. I tried to get the Democratic nomination, but a lot of for a party that speaks about being inclusive and wanted to
Right.
include people, they had they wanted to exclude me because of I run bar businesses, adult bar businesses.
Okay.
You know, which I found ironic.
Okay.
Now, I have a question for you. How big of a role does the redistricting play in you getting what you need to get accomplished?
I support redistricting. I mean, the districts in Virginia are horrible. I mean, they're a joke. You have, like, my district, which reaches from the museum district of Richmond City, where I live, through Henrico County, through the west end up to Louisa, all the way up to Orange and Culpeper.
Wow.
You know, and I last 2 years ago, when I made the circuit to speak to the political committees, we were driving sometimes 2 hours all the way up to Culpeper County.
Okay.
You know, we were driving to go to some of those far reaches up there. And I mean, there's no way that the people that live in Culpeper have any of the same interests or any of the same important issues as the people that live in Richmond City or Henrico County. So as a congressperson, you would have a hard time representing that. And it even shows, like, in the voting patterns, you see, you know, that typically the lines are drawn on rural and urban issues, you know.
So I'm gonna ask the both of you this question, and we talk about this a lot. Aren't there some things that we share in common, like the education of our children, good health care, you know, retirement benefits? I mean, isn't there some type of commonality that's going to reach across urban and rural, or color barriers, or sexual preference? Can't we all come to the table, so to speak? Brian, what's your thoughts?
Oh, I think there's 100 things to do. The problem is that people make money off of finding what doesn't unite us.
Right.
They make money off of finding out what divides us.
Okay.
And then I think the system is kind of geared toward that. Not just a redistricting comment, but a broad comment on the system is, you know, there are press people hired for candidates and elected officials, and their job is to make sure that their guy looks good for
Right.
this issue and the other guy looks bad, rather than focusing on what we could get done.
Mike?
I agree. I think there are some things. I mean, everybody cares about the future and everybody cares about their kids.
Okay.
But I also think that there's some fundamental things where people from the city and from the country aren't going to agree. You know, I have a sister and she lives way out in the country of Chesterfield County.
Okay.
She doesn't want nothing to do with living in the city.
Okay.
I live in the city and I don't want nothing to do with living in the county
Okay.
or out in the suburbs. You
Right.
know, people that I think live in urban areas have a different lifestyle or different priorities. They want to be close to job, close to transportation,
Okay.
close to good schools.
Mhm.
People that live in the country, they want to protect their rural way of life. They don't want development. They don't want high taxes.
Right.
So you get places like where the high schools are not greatly developed versus like we're more closer to these areas. You have high schools that are modern with the modern amenities. You know, when I was doing the congressional thing 2 years ago,
Right.
there's parts of Louisa County that don't have high-speed internet.
Wow.
Horrible.
And you know, they some people out there don't want the high-speed internet put in. Some people do, but how are you going to attract small business or how are you going to attract modern people without high-speed
That's
internet and those kinds of things?
Okay. Yeah,
How are we going to educate our kids?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Have another question?
I guess this is one for both of you guys. What actually got you motivated and started? Was there any particular like mentor that you had that actually influenced you, or you said, "Hey, I like what this person has to say, and I want to go ahead and pursue what I'm doing"?
I can do it first if you like.
Yeah, you go first.
So, Governor Mark Warner is a personal hero of mine. I heard him talk about government in a way that I hadn't heard anybody talk about it before. I always felt like folks on the right of the political spectrum always talked about we don't want to put money into government. And folks on the left always talk about, oh, we need to have the government do all these things.
Right.
And Governor Warner at the time was talking about return on our investment. So we need to make investments in it, but we need to evaluate the level the return has. And I think that kind of smart, sensible policy is something that encouraged me to get involved in this in general. And then making sure the rules are fair along the way so that we get good people in office that are willing to step up and run, because it's not an
Okay.
easy task to run.
Okay.
Trying to get good people in office and make sure the system can work.
Mike?
Definitely, as far as a mentor or hero, you know, like I said, I spoke a little bit about Larry Flint, you know, and he's actually a really nice. It was funny because I saw the movie when I was 15,
Okay.
and I wrote a fan letter to him.
Okay.
And you know, he actually wrote me back, and he was like, "Look, you know, until you're 18, I probably shouldn't communicate with you." You know, but then when I was 18, I was able to, you know, strike up a friendship with him. I got a couple articles of mine about free speech published in his magazine.
Okay.
And he's somebody who I've always looked up to because of his sacrifice and what he did for everybody, everyone's ability for free speech.
Okay.
You know, running for office is not easy. It's really hard, especially when you speak your mind, like you were saying. Like,
Right.
you know, you say something and it's crazy what people will do. People will go out of their way. Like when I was 2 years ago when I was doing the congressional thing, I was speaking my mind on Twitter and I was having death threats.
Wow.
Yeah, these people find your address or research where you live at, and they call death threats in, and they do all of this. And you know, you call the police, and the police are, you know, they sit outside your house or whatnot. But you know, it's crazy that like I was taught that if you disagree with something, you go and you run for office. You don't call the person and say,
Yeah.
"I'm going to kill you."
I think that's the power of social media.
Yeah.
We are tight on time. I definitely want to thank you, Mike Dickinson, for coming out.
Thank you.
Congressional 7th District here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Brian Cannon, Virginia 2021. All these numbers, right?
Yeah.
2021. Thank you very much for gracing the stage with us today. We're going to just cut it short right here. This is Talks Over Drinks. Corey Folkinier, Markel Prize. Cheers.